Welcome from me, Guy Monson, to our regular Saracen 6-Minute Strategy. Our thematic process that builds portfolios around global trends or themes is now nearly 25 years old. In the early days, our focus was on the embryonic digital economy, sparked by Bill Gates' famous 1995 memo, The Internet Tidal Wave. By the early 2000s, we turned to globalization, following China's seminal accession to the WTO in 2001. After the great financial crisis in 2008, we introduced a theme acknowledging the deep economic scars left in its wake. We called it simply The Strong Get Stronger. Today, we believe we're facing a similar pivotal moment. The determined shift to an America-first agenda is leading, rightly or wrongly, to a fragmentation of geopolitics. Multilateral institutions born out of the post-war Bretton Woods architecture and the Cold War are being increasingly sidelined. In their place, the US is adopting a more transactional approach. If countries want access to its defence capabilities, vast consumer market or technology, they may need to meet new terms. This, of course, is prompting other nations and regions to rethink their own supply chains and trade strategies. In response, we've developed a new investment theme we're calling simply security, which looks to the beneficiaries of these nascent trends. In the slides ahead, I'll be speaking with Colm Harney, our senior investment strategist, who has led much of the work. So Colm, great to have you on 6-Minute Strategy, and we're talking themes today. Just remind viewers where we stand today with our themes and our key priorities in portfolios.
Thank you, Guy. So we have two themes in the area of technological change. So this relates to the digitalization and automation of the global economy. In demographics, we have the aging populations and the changes to consumer habits that come with these shifts in the population pyramid. A few years ago, we introduced climate change, of course, and we are now broadening this to the wider area of security.
And that's what we're talking today about. I can see how this issue has emerged simply because the global order is starting to change with a huge acceleration in that left-hand panel of Chinese GDP, and that's making some of the post-war institutions that have governed really trade look a bit irrelevant or a little old-fashioned. What are your thoughts?
Yes, so this is one of the fundamental challenges really that is causing the rise of security today, is the institutions and the whole approach to global governance, this kind of rules-based order underpinned by the US, was set up in a very different economic world.
Yes.
You've seen rise of China and other countries, India, a lot of other emerging markets, not be matched really by growing influence in global governance.
And after Bretton Woods, you saw these institutions, the WTO, IMF, etc. They suddenly look a little bit dated, or at least not really ready for this global reordering that we're seeing.
Yes, and this is causing tensions to rise and falling support really for this global system underpinned by these institutions.
And you drew quite accurately because you showed how powerful this globalization theme has been for the last 25 years or so. But the last 4 or 5 years we stalled. Now part of that is COVID, of course, but there are other factors at play.
Yes, so we've seen, as I mentioned, some decline in the credibility of the system for emerging markets, but we've also seen a kind of a withdrawal really from this by the traditional Western powers. So we've seen countries like the US and much of Europe really struggle with challenges like deindustrialization, which have come with the globalization.
Yes, I see. It's not going to be easy because spending particularly on defence, which is going to be one of the consequences of this security trend, is going to be really pressurised because budgets are already stretched in global economies around the world. How will that work out?
Yes, so the defence spending, as we've seen, has really shot up, and this is a trend that we think is going to be around for quite a long time, and it's really going to challenge the fiscal positions of a lot of governments, but especially in a time when you see rising interest rates, interest costs with higher inflation, and it's really it's a difficult position for the governments to be in.
And we've got ageing populations, we've got climate challenges, but your argument is security is so fundamental, it'll elbow some of these out.
Absolutely. I think we've seen that when countries really feel their core security is threatened, this rises to the top of the agenda.
There's also going to be changes in the engine room of the financial system, particularly the role of the dollar. We've seen on the red line there, the foreign ownership of privately held US treasuries really fall quite sharply, and the holdings of gold rising. What's going on there?
So the global system really was underpinned by this US commitment and this almost US backstop. That has increasingly become questioned in recent years, I think particularly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine and what happened to the large investments they've had in US debt, which were no longer accessible to them. So this has caused reserve managers around the world really just to rethink their assumption that the US is forever completely risk-free.
And you're seeing that in the fall in Treasury ownership by foreign central banks. So let's get to the meat of this. What does this mean for portfolio structure? Where are the new areas you're going to go to find the beneficiaries of this security theme?
Well, this is a very broad theme. It impacts all aspects of investment decision making. We think from asset allocation, currencies, down to individual companies. And we think there's quite a few areas of opportunity here that we've been focusing on. I think the security of supply chains, whether that's food, energy, or other resources. We've seen some pivoting of the attitudes towards national champions. The regulatory environment has become a bit more favorable. There's a number of companies and industries that have natural protection against some of these areas just through the design of their business models. They just have less cross-border risks to worry about. And of course, we see cybersecurity is ever stronger as a theme.
So thank you, Colm. I think we're going to hear a lot of this security theme and a lot of its beneficiaries in the months ahead. It's going to be a key part of what we're doing at Saris. And of course, we're seeking action with Trump's tour around the Middle East as we currently speak. Well, I hope that's helpful for everybody. I hope it's giving you a little bit of thematic leadership in your thinking about investment markets. And yes, thank you for attending and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time.